City of Stevens Point Board of Public Works meeting, recorded August 11, 2025.
We call the Board of Public Works meeting to order at 6:14. Trish, could we get a roll, please?
Sure. Mayor Weeza.
Here.
Chris Tiffany, have you heard from him?
I did not hear anything from him, so it will be an absence.
All right. Alder Kneebone? Here. Alder Morrow?
Here.
Alder Keemer?
Here.
Alder Shuda?
Here.
Alder Boozy?
Here.
And that's enough for a quorum, so we will continue. Item number 1 is the Director's Report. Director?
Just a few things. First, Division of Church Street, Business 51, Reconstruct. Since I had otherwise put together the Director's Report, was told by AECom that the south side design has been submitted to Wisconsin Department of Transportation. So our what's called PS&Es, our draft PS&Es, plans, specifications, and estimates are in to them. So that project is moving along and on schedule. And what I really wanted to highlight, and was intended, was just the latter part of what I've written there. STP Urban cycle is back up and running. We met as the local kind of pseudo MPU, the municipal planning organization, to pick projects, prioritize projects. No opposition to submitting yet another one for Business 51, so our plan will be to put together an application and see what we can do if we're so lucky to get yet additional funding for the corridor. Talking to WISDOT a little bit, asked them what kind of the process is there if having received funding for this project or this corridor before otherwise might limit us. They said they don't actually look at the names to what it is to try to pick that, just to prevent that sort of thing. If there's a priority project that checks all the other boxes, that's really what's more important to them. So it sounds like it's in our best interest to at least apply. So we'll be seeing that coming forward here in the future. Second, Fall Paving Project. Just want to identify what I had otherwise stated in here for others that we did otherwise bid that. That's one of the things the award is on the agenda tonight. Just we didn't get a lot of interest when we first put it out there. Thought we would for a project that's pretty straightforward, like it is. But in talking to a few contractors, they indicated that just no one had the capacity to do it or felt they had capacity to do it. In fact, Stuczynski's, who was the low bidder, actually told us that they reduced their price because they didn't feel that they were forced to do it in the fall, so they could actually give us a better price to do it. So ultimately, we saved some money, we got more interest. I think that's the benefit of bidding, but it's still yet to be seen. We haven't gotten a schedule from Stuczynski's whether or not they might tackle any or try all of it yet this fall. But I think more likely, very good chance that fall paving will now become spring paving, just so everyone's aware of kind of how the schedule is. But we got some really good bid pricing back on that one. And then lastly, Hoover Road intersections signalization. Most of the equipment is into the contractor. They're assembling things that they can back at their office and getting things. There are a few things that they're still waiting for. Once everything arrives, which should be later this month, they will mobilize and finish up. And they're really assuming it's just going to take them like 2 or 3 days once they arrive on site to get everything up and running and start testing. So it shouldn't be long. So we're still on target for about mid-September.
Great. Just one point, because we're going to be starting the budget. Well, we've started internally, starting the budget process. So you will be presented with a list of anticipated capital projects for streets next year, that you'll be asked to approve. If money is saved or unspent in those projects, we use that in part to help with these fall paving projects. So these fall paving projects are really kind of contingent on having the money available for it. So the director does a pretty good job of making sure the priorities are where they need to be. And when money becomes available, he plans everything out to make sure that we can get as much done as possible with the funds that you authorize. Any questions for the director on any of those 3 items? Yes.
Just a quick clarification. Is the intent with the STP Urban grant to submit the center section of Business 51? Or is that
every section.
Yeah, really every section if we otherwise could.
Okay.
So no, it's possible. I've got another meeting with the WISDOT program manager on Thursday to talk through some of the logistics to try to identify specifically, what would be the best interest. So what we're currently looking at would be the third phase of the south segment.
Got it. Okay.
As that. And part of it is that because a big part of the STP urban program is actually the pavement, it's pavement program, because they've got other safety programs, like there's the Highway Safety Improvement Program, HISSUP funding, which is actually something else I'm working with AECOM to try to pursue, which we think actually is a better approach for the central segment. So we're trying to balance potential other funding sources out. But since it's so much concentrates on the pavement component of it, we feel that that's probably a better candidate than the central section, as well as trying to keep in line with some things I thought maybe we could start to do like Clark, Maine. That pavement's actually in pretty good shape. But the signalization of the two intersections and the change that we have there make that a very expensive project relative to the length of road that we're trying to do, which might then price us kind of out of it. Our request might be too much. So we've kind of steered there, and we're targeting the central segment, which, as I wrote in there, may put things kind of out of the orderly fashion that I had hoped to otherwise do things, because it may just not be possible to jump through all the additional hoops, design study report, environmental work, and everything else that needs to be done in order to work through the state, the federal process. So we may end up leapfrog here to secure the funding to work within, the years of qualification for that program.
Okay, thank you.
Just a question on the Green Avenue. Is it the road's taken out and a new road's put in, or is it overlay? What is it?
We were hoping that it would be either an overlay or a pulverize. In the end, when we started looking at a few of the things, and when it was otherwise turned over, in fact, it's even in a jurisdictional transfer from the county that there should be a minimum when the road is understood. That was like 2001, way before my time. Be rebuilt at the time. I don't know exactly what happened there, but a minimum of 10 inches of base, aggregate base beneath it. We measured between 4 and 7, which explains why it seems to be breaking up where it's breaking up in the travel lanes. That's our biggest concern. The road itself isn't necessarily that old, but we don't think there's sufficient base. So we looked at two different options. One is a technology called a geogrid, which is basically just a large roll of plastic, open kind of grid material that you put in there that kind of supports it, as well as then just adding more base into it. To do that, simply pulverizing it we didn't think going to be sufficient. To do that, we would have to build it up, and then there's a lot of work to kind of potentially backpitching the driveways and working that. So we went with replacement is what came up with what our fund is. We actually bid two different alternatives related to that. One I said being the geogrid as being the lower cost alternative versus just rebuilding it the way we would like it. Actually got favorable prices back on the complete replacement of it. So we'd like to go that road.
And that should last?
With proper base, it should last 30 to 40 years, much more than the 20 whatever some years that it has now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the director on those items? Then I would entertain a motion to accept the director's report and place it on file.
So move.
Thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Morrow. Discussion? Kind of beat that one up already. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 2 is a discussion-only item, and that is for the potential creation of a terrace garden ordinance. A memo and some examples were included in your packet, Director.
Thank you. This is something actually former Alder Shore had kind of talked to me otherwise about not long before he departed from the council about some things, and kind of got things started. I've been watching this a little bit ever since there to see what it is. At the time, it seemed like, yes, I identified a few of these things, but really it wasn't otherwise, maybe not paying enough attention to that or noticing enough of them. But as I identified in the memo, it's like now it seems to be more commonplace, during a public informational meeting for street construction, someone in the crowd is going to ask us what can go in, when we're done, or, can. In fact, if you go to the end of Walker Street right now by the Hammerhead, you see the last person on the south side there by the Hammerhead is actually removed the erosion control matting and is looking to plant themselves something there. So it's just becoming a kind of a more regular thing, and we're getting more phone calls in and people asking us, what can I do? What can I do? And the reality is we don't really have much. There's some of the stuff in the zoning code and such, as well as then we have a couple of minor things there, but really nothing that covers this particular topic so much, at least articulates it in a way that would take away some of those questions. So I decided to take a little drive, grabbed the scooter, and started driving to a few places that I otherwise knew were there. Thought I might get a half dozen or so pictures of terrace gardens, and I didn't cover probably a third of the city. And I realized I had more photos than I was going to otherwise print in the memo to do this. It's just various examples, but soon every other block I'd find another one and say, oh, well, that's maybe unique in this way. So those are kind of the examples they have there. And did some research online after talking to a few people. I said former Alder Shore, remembering some of the conversations and emails that he had sent me back in the day, as well as other conversations with other alders and staff, as well as some of the residents from PIMs and whatnot. Looked online to try to find some examples, found some stuff, which is the example ordinance, and I apologize that it got missed in the packet. Hopefully everybody got that.
Wait, I
today.
think the camera's frozen.
No, just Scott.
Just me.
It's probably Zoom or at the very least, the internet service. Sorry, there's not much we can do about it.
All right.
To be clear, we are meeting our legal requirements by having a public meeting. We are not legally obligated to stream it, but we do. The streaming is probably still okay.
Right.
This video is not. You're still stuck.
Still stuck. All right. Right to that. I know I sometimes come across as stiff, but I didn't think I was that bad. But so, like I said, I was giving that otherwise more thought, so I was just kind of hoping I wanted to introduce this tonight, at least an idea, see kind of where everybody was at, what other ideas others had. Might formulated in my thought process, we try to get something done yet, like this fall and the winter, so as we get into next spring and we get into planting, hopefully we have something on the books that people can otherwise, follow, along with that. And as I write in the memo, it's more about just generating some consistency, but I think one of the bigger parts of it is the public safety aspect of it. I think, one of the pictures, if you can otherwise see which one it is, picture number 4, and I know there's one of them, I just have the different angle, but it would be much the same thing. You can see how their little garden there is starting to block the stop sign. And that's some of the things that we otherwise can have. I do appreciate the beautification otherwise that has there. Quite honestly, if I could have it just my way, I would say grass is the easiest thing to regulate and control, and it's the easiest thing to check up on. If it's more than 8 inches as per the code, you know that there's a problem, and there isn't. But I realize that may not be what the community wants to do that, and I think there's something in between there that we can otherwise work on. So from my perspective, it's, in part the safety thing to keep in mind of how we want to do it, and, what are some of the potential pitfalls of what we otherwise may, allow to be planted there or placed within, the right of way. And so I tried to articulate that in the sample ordinance. If you've seen that, trying to put some ideas together on there. It says if something were going to be planted, I think, my opinion to be something similar to this. There's a few things in here maybe that I was probably even a little more lenient in my own mind over maybe what I would prefer, my more personal preference to what it should be, and selfishly as far as managing that, maintaining it through Public Works, but tried to come up with something that I thought allowed for plantings, but still kept some thought process to public safety, especially height. I think that's one of the biggest things in my opinion. Federal Highway reports, the average, height of a, driver's visual is 3.5 feet, 42 inches. So trying to think about how they might view things that might be on the sidewalk behind their, coming up to an intersection or a driveway, to me, that's something I think we need to be, kept in our minds as we otherwise, if we create such an ordinance to do that, to make sure that whatever is behind this planting is visible to someone driving. So with that, I would look for any ideas, thoughts.
Sorry, I got to take a minute here for technical difficulties. Zoom apparently is not responding. Casey, can you confirm whether or not we're still live streaming?
Yeah, I did check on our site. We are live.
Okay, so the streaming still works, just the Zoom is causing problems. Sorry, it's either a glitch or internet service. Director, a couple of things that I had notes on is the first one, planting shall be maintained with no encroachment or overhang on the adjacent sidewalk, curb, or street. Great idea. There's several locations, some of which are on Division Street, that I was just noticing today. There was a young boy on a bicycle on the sidewalk, and I was on the roadway, and there was plant material encroaching into the roadway and on the sidewalk. He had to like go around it so he didn't, I don't know, scratch his leg or whatever. So I think that's important. The height restriction, I think, is a very important piece of it. Making sure that if there's an existing city tree in the right-of-way, that we're not doing anything to endanger that. Plantings including flowers, native or turf grasses, and other plants would be allowed, but in no event shall any noxious weed be planted or maintained. There is a definition by state statute what noxious is and is not. Dandelions, while annoying, are not noxious. But the native or turf grasses, because there was a yard that I had looked at, it looked like white locust trees were, to me, quite frankly, it looked like they just didn't want to cut their grass and haven't. But I don't know that. Maybe they purposefully planted all of those white locust trees in their yard, but I don't know. But it's important that we emphasize that these are plantings, not just, I don't feel like cutting my grass this month. The other one that I had a question about is number 6. Edible fruits and vegetables are not allowed. Why is that?
Several reasons. One, we don't want to otherwise encourage people to come in and otherwise pick what might be otherwise dirty or truly unsuitable for eating. We can't guarantee the maintenance of such things to do that they're maybe not sprayed with pesticides or something if they have it. We also don't want to get into the fact that who's exactly do those fruits and vegetables belong to if they're planted in the right of way. Are they private? If it's the adjacent property owner, do I own those vegetables? If I'm otherwise walking on the sidewalk and I see that there is a cucumber growing there and I decide, oh gosh, that cucumber looks really nice and it's planted right and I pick it, what do I do there? The intent here otherwise just prevents that potential confusion as far as whose ownership otherwise is, but more important, it's about the safety of people that might be passing by that try to otherwise do that, as well as we can't control what is happening along the street. You could be driving along the street and someone wants to otherwise pay a playing on you, which I would hope no one would do that, but they could spray something, whatever they want, on your vegetables, and you, as the owner, may not even know what someone has done to your vegetables. So it's just trying to protect everybody from that, to think that we can't control what it is, no one really has control over it, so we should just avoid that situation.
Yeah, thank you, Director. I got to say that's a little sad. That hadn't crossed my mind. Like I would pick somebody else's cucumber, or worse, spray something on there that could be a danger to someone. It hadn't occurred to me. So thank you for the explanation. And I'm disappointed in society because we have to do that. But it wouldn't. So they would be prohibited by ordinance at that point.
Correct.
Well, that's sad too, because I've got fruit trees in front of my house and people pick the fruit all the time. But, I personally don't care, but I'd like to take a look at that, just because, especially in an urban area, there's not a lot of places for people to grow their own food. And if they put a fence, maybe we can give society the benefit of the doubt. But regardless, I'll defer to others on that one. And then the last one was enforcement, because that's a big deal even right now. We have one person that is in charge of property maintenance for the entire city, and quite honestly, it's hard to keep up. So most of those complaints most of that enforcement is complaint driven. I'm not guessing you're volunteering your department to do any enforcement, are you?
Well, I am in part, yes, because I think one of the things that we have the benefit of is having garbage recycling drivers out nearly every day, so 4 days a week. So, and because what we'd be looking for would be something that hopefully be consistent is in the same vicinity of areas that they're working in, right along the curb line. The idea is that they may not catch 100% of everything, but have them also observe as they're driving through to look for violations.
Okay, but they wouldn't have the authority necessarily to cite or issue orders. That would have to go back to. Correct.
They would otherwise call back to it. We otherwise get a list, and then myself, someone else from the department would then go otherwise take a look.
Okay.
And send a letter if something were.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're covered on this because there was an issue with parking cars on the property, and was it property maintenance or was it law enforcement, and it got confusing. So I would just make sure that we, when we do it, we're clear and concise as to what is not allowed, and who is or isn't in charge of maintaining it, who is or is not in charge of enforcement. Anyone else? Yes.
Currently, if someone plants flowers, whatever, in their parkway or terrace, and there's some sort of road reconstruction project or right-of-way work, is the understanding that those plants, flowers may need to be removed to do the road work? I mean, is that the risk people take when
Correct,
making?
yes.
Okay.
They otherwise do that, and we send out our frequently asked questions list includes that, as well as any time we have a public informational meeting, Reconstruction, we always tell all the adjoining property owners that everything within that, for reconstruct is going to be, removed. So if they do have any of this stuff in here that they want to save, that they're instructed to remove it beforehand, or if they can live without it, the contractor will remove it. They've got big equipment, nothing really gets in their way.
Okay.
And we do not replace it either.
No, yeah, just turf grass is all we put back
Right.
in, so we just seed it when we're done.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? This is only a discussion item. Alderperson Lang, come on up to the front. Trevor, jump in the line. Rock your body in time. Step up.
Sam Lang, 47 Strongs, and the Alder for District 9. So, as I understand it with the discussion, like a fruit tree would not be allowed. But we have street trees that the park can plant for people that are of like edible fruit tree varieties. So that's kind of where I'm just a little confused on, is it okay for the city to put in one, but not a citizen if we were to pass it as is?
And yes, and that was a good question. It would be, otherwise my hope is we would talk through, otherwise at parks, I said this is just an idea that, we would come to some consensus, and if we otherwise agree that, and through this group, that we want to allow edibles of anything, that's,
Okay.
Edible foods.
Edible foods, yes, edible foods.
Thanks,
That
Barry.
it would be my hope that we might otherwise eliminate any retreats, but we're having discussion, so yeah.
I know we had apple trees or stuff.
I think they're flowering.
So not in the terraces. We have apple or fruit trees. Director's up here, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually do not plant, so our orchards is what we're really referring to, and we've been putting those in areas that are like a cul-de-sac dead end, where they're not between the sidewalk and the curb. And for not only the reasons that Director Badoon mentioned, but also we run into a lot of litter, right? So in situations where apples aren't picked, or we have other items related to the fruit, it can land on the street, gets into street sweeping operations, other things that run into problems too. So all of our orchards and a lot of the edible orchards that we're planting are either in the Yolga Disc Golf Course. They're on the NCCT cooperation property we have in Buchholz. We worked with Director Badoon on a couple cul-de-sac properties, or Prairie Street that we took the right-of-way out of. So we've been putting them in areas that they're actually not abutting the street, because they can kind of serve both purposes, and then we are noticing it as open to the public for everyone. One of the disadvantages is we do sometimes have fruit taken when it's not ready, right? People go in, they're not really aware of it. But on our side, we've tried to not put anything that's really related to something that's going to be consumed along the boulevards, other than, we have crabapple trees, but it's because ultimately the birds get to it before it hits the ground most of the time. That's why. So just wanted to add that.
Come on up, Trevor or whomever. That was a poet and I didn't even know it.
Hello, my name's Amanda and I live on Elk Street. I just I was really excited to see this on the agenda. My background's in native plants, and I just wanted to show my support of the native plantings and terraces, especially after construction projects. I think that we can potentially do something better than just planting grass seed, and especially the plastic erosion matting. I think it's great that if we could allow residents to do these plantings like off the bat, because it is a pain in the butt to remove turf grass. But I think like letting people know ahead of time that that's an option, or even potentially like offering that as like a seed mix or something rather than a turf grass seed mix. Rather than us continuing to make these decisions on autopilot, just for the sake of doing things and continuing to move forward. There's so many benefits to native plants over turf grass. I know that's what this is moving towards, and I just wanted to highlight some of those for people that may not know. They have extensive root systems that reduce soil erosion, filter and slow water movement down, which reduces strain on our stormwater systems in heavy rain events. They reduce water consumption since they are adapted to our local conditions, and they don't require constant watering like turf grass does throughout the summer. And obviously this would benefit our beautification of the city. That's what I love, seeing native plantings pop up around town. I'm okay if things are looking a little messy and not perfect. I think that offers some beauty to it, and I think offering residents the option of taking this into their own hands would reduce the cost on the city in some of these projects, to not be putting that money into seed and especially the erosion mat post-construction. So just wanted to show my approval. And I think food would be really great to have in the terraces as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trevor Rourke, 601 Washington. I too also support this concept. It's really cool. Been asking for this for a while, and yeah, there's a lot of benefits. I won't go into a lot of those benefits, but I'm just curious if it's still possible to squeeze this in for this year's reconstruction season of the streets.
Is that a little self-serving there, Trevor?
Well, I am in that neighborhood. So are you.
So what I will tell you is that most of this is not illegal already.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It is, however, unregulated.
Yeah.
So now is the time, if you were to do something this fall that followed loosely this ordinance, you want to plant wildflowers or whatever it happened to be, nobody's going to stop you from doing that. The ordinance then would take effect whenever we're able to.
Cool.
Just know that all the standard rules apply, that if for some reason they got to come back in and, I don't know, replace the curb or something, you could lose whatever you plant.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So part of that is getting to the kind of the head of the erosion mats. So these guys, the plastic ones, is it possible to, when you do erosion mats for residents that don't opt in or out or whatever, when you decide to do the erosion mats, can you make sure they're not plastic? These don't get removed. They just break down over time and turn into microplastics, get into our soil and water. They're not necessary because, you know, they have like the burlap or whatever kind, the cotton or something. Is that possible?
Yeah, we're constantly looking at trying to balance out the cost of installation with, of course, how the others, the environmental components of that, the breakdown, as well as just the post-construction requirements that get there and success we others have. So constantly evolving.
Okay.
We're looking yet for the next best thing. We realize that, a lot of people always don't like them, depending upon when you start mowing and how you mow it. They get caught up in your mower. So we realize that they're otherwise not perfect, but we've had much better success with that versus, say, hydro seeding, which is, otherwise a common practice, especially anything that does have a slope to it. So yes, we're constantly looking for the next best thing that hopefully is not too expensive to install construction, but as environmentally friendly as possible.
Okay, great. Thank you. Looking through the kind of the example ordinance, the draft, if you will, A1 talks about the maximum height. I think it's a little more contextual than just assuming a straight max, because if you want to do a tree, then you've already exceeded that max once it's an adult. So I really think the ability to do trees, allowing residents to plant trees would be really nice. So that.
Well, right now trees are regulated under Forestry Act, and only trees that are approved by the forester can be planted. Right, that is part of our ordinance.
Okay, so I'm hoping to encourage a shift to allow residents to do that eventually. That's approved by the city.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, to be honest, I'm not sure that would others go, because I already like to argue plenty with the forester on plantings relative to signage. And I know they just are finishing up doing that, and they got some issues. So if we started to allow that, there would be another whole round of that. And generally speaking, you'd probably not be able to plant, because if you're, who's going to trim said tree? I mean, forestry trims their trees. If they're private trees planted anywhere, then who's that? Who's responsible for it?
Gotcha.
That's a wholly different subject to that. And yes, and who's going to otherwise maintain it when that tree grows up and blocks the stop sign and someone drives through that? Who assumes the liability? for the accident. That's
Or lifts up the concrete, and since council has chosen that we're not billing it back to the property owners anymore, it becomes our responsibility even though we had nothing to do with it.
So good part of the conversation.
That gets a little messy.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you. A2, the 1 foot minimum is a little too restrictive. There's plenty of really awesome plants that you can grow, you know, in a kind of a smaller diameter, such as like milkweed, sunflowers, etc. So getting 1 foot away from the concrete is a little bit, because like if you only have like a 2 to 3 foot terrace, then you're just talking like this little strip in the middle of plants. So I think there should be some leeway there. A5, I would think shrubs would be possible as long as they're following the other restrictions, because shrubs can be pretty awesome when it comes to keeping your kids from running to the street, for example. So just an idea there. I agree with the mayor, adding fruits and vegetables. That would be great. I know there's some concerns, but I think one way of getting around the concept of who stole my cucumber is maybe part of the ordinance could be it is open to the public. So if you take the risk, you're planning for other people, it's more of a communal thing as opposed to just it's mine. So maybe could be part of the discussion. A9, could rain gardens also be considered instead of just like doing ditch turf? Because I think that was kind of the concern of doing the wrong plantings in a water area, water-based area. So I wonder if rain garden would be possible.
So, yeah, I mean, in rain gardens, say like in a swale area, because in fact, as was otherwise pointed out, you know, like native plantings within swales would be our preferred method because they are better than turf grass within there as far as the root zones, you know, creating root zones and draining out the swales. I mean, it's really just trying to always limit things that might be like, we have very few ditches in the city, but there are some like out on Perlowski that, you know, they're actually intended to convey water, so we don't want anything, you know, trees, shrubberies or something like that, or other plantings like that in those areas when they're intended to convey water. But other than that, yes, I mean, these plantings would allow for you to put in something in a swale, you know, to plant that native that, in fact, have that rain garden effect. In fact, there's one not far from my house that someone's done something similar to that. They actually have their only swale in the area. They dug their own swale and planted it, in essence, with, you know, more native plantings.
Oh, okay. So part of the conversation. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I have something.
Yes, sir.
The one thing about trees is that if they're in that area, oftentimes, especially when we like plow snow and so on, that could cause some havoc.
You can, but yeah. And I mean, there's, Trevor's right. I mean, my terrace, his terrace, we only have maybe 2 feet. So it can be challenging, especially with trees, putting them in there. That's why if you want a tree in your terrace, contact the city forester, the forestry department. They'll give you a list of approved trees and you'll get your choice. If we can put them in there, we will. If not, he will be more than happy to explain why it's probably not a great idea. We will be continuing discussions on this, taking the feedback. So if anybody live streaming, Zoom is still down, so we'll still have a recording. But you can submit your comments to the Public Works Department and they can take that under advisement. We'll bring the ordinance back at some point in the near future. Item number 3 is discussion and possible adoption of a banner policy and fee schedule. It was a banner policy. Not just an ordinary policy, just a banner policy.
It really is. So
Director, go ahead.
This is something that's come up, otherwise, you know, more recently. It just seems that in the last couple of years, we've had more and more requests to either replace existing or put up new banners. And as I was mentioned there, it seemed like at one point in time, it was, you know, kind of an insignificant amount of time, otherwise, for Public Works to deal with it. It seems that of late, it's become more involved in what it is, and, you know, whatever organization, whatever people's plans to otherwise do things. I think some of that has just been, we've been pretty well open to it. We've, you know, otherwise been mounting stuff even on WPS, you know, utility poles. They've kind of cracked down on us for that, which means that it's, if anyone were to identify a WPS pole, it's a lot more work for us to try to coordinate that activity with WPS to otherwise get there. So it seems to be taking more time to do that. Just for example, I really like the veterans banners. I think it's otherwise a wonderful program, but it took a crew of nearly 2 weeks to put up those banners. That was just the installation of the banners, just because it takes time, because it's a crew of 2. Every time we use the bucket truck, safety reasons says we have to have 2 people there. Just moving even from pole to pole, by the time you get it and set up to do that, that's time. That's a considerable amount of time, for the program. And when you add other banners, Southside business banners, Mid-States, UW, SP banners, there are quite a few of them, there that we need to otherwise take care of to do so. And right now we don't always have a policy. We try to work with everyone. Generally speaking, everyone's kind of agreeable. Banners don't necessarily always come in so many different sizes, especially the mounting brackets are, generally kind of in some standardized approach there. So, getting them to comply with that had been an issue. But this would otherwise just put it down so we don't have to field the questions ahead of time. If we had, this is what your banner others has to be, this is what it's open to, we're going to limit it to just city-owned light poles instead of right now it says it just seems to be, since it's unregulated, open up to everything. So just really to identify and define really where they can go, how long they can otherwise be out there, what otherwise we would otherwise put up, as well as then to try to just recoup some of the costs that we otherwise have related to putting these up and reviewing everyone's proposals and seeing what it is, as well as taking them down and returning them. So just a policy that we'd others like to adopt in public works, related to banners. So yeah, looking for any thoughts that you might have, questions, anything you think we may have missed, or within the draft, the sample that we have there, comments, concerns. Good idea, bad idea?
The group that does the veterans, is that the American Legion? Who does that?
It's actually the Portage County Veterans Group. Barb McCloy is my contact person. That's who I refer people to. So it's a combination of the VFW, the American Legion, and the rest of the Portage County veterans. And there is a fee for that banner to get put up, and then at the end of the season, the family gets that banner. But we've had some, the Southside Business Association has some, Mid-State Technical College, Pointers, I think even the downtown businesses have some. We have been asked on multiple occasions to put these banners up, and I think this is a pretty good idea, especially with budgets being as tight as they are, stretching staff. It gives us a chance to better keep up.
I think it makes sense. I thought it's kind of surprising. I thought that the city didn't charge prior to this. So
no, we don't.
It was kind of a courtesy, and honestly, they hadn't been very frequent. They're still not terribly frequent, but the veteran banner program has been very successful. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot of them at this point, and it just gets time consuming. Go ahead, Alder.
The veteran banners are about $300 a piece to the family, and then they get put up, and then, as the mayor said, they get returned to the family or given to the family after the banners come down. But they're about $300 a pop for a family who wants to put their veteran's picture up there on a banner.
Yeah, it's a nice memorial and keepsake.
Yeah.
nice.
I have a hard time wanting to charge for veterans, but I think that makes sense for the other ones. And truly, there's a cost even to put them up for veterans. So I suppose if it's good for one, it should be good for all.
Yeah, there's a cost just to manufacture it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know who would voluntarily pay for that. Maybe someone with a great endowment or won the lottery.
Oh, yeah, I have to buy a ticket.
Me too. Alderperson.
I'm so glad to see a fee associated with this draft ordinance. Thank you. I appreciate that for a long time our community has been being so neighborly and doing things out of the goodness of our heart. I wonder how much 2 humans and a box truck cost for an hour or a day. And I wonder if the fee that we're proposing to charge comes anywhere near alignment with that cost. Said another way, what proportionally are we pushing off on people that want to hang banners, and what are our property taxpayers paying for our staff and our equipment to participate in hanging their requested banners at this fee schedule?
So at $20 in installation, it doesn't quite cover half of our cost. About half is what we estimate. Also depends how many we can get up in an hour or so.
Yeah, it's probably hard to, it's an imperfect science, right? It depends on how close the banners are to each other and, right, how effectively they can. If we are proposing a fee schedule, I would love it to be closer to 100% of the cost of hanging those banners than 50%, respectfully. I yield.
Thank you. And Director, that actually is a pretty good point. By standardizing the brackets can stay up as long as the banners are now standardized, because I know they always haven't been.
Right.
Any other comments?
The review fee, that's by your department or some other department?
Yes, that would be our department.
And this also is an ongoing process. This is just an introduction. For some of you, this might be the first time you're hearing about it tonight. I want to be clear on that. So we're going to continue on with that. If you have thoughts or ideas, send them to the director through his office or through my office or through the clerk's office or through your alderperson. And we will bring this ordinance back at some point in the future. All right. Moving on, item number 4, to approve the ordinance amendments in Chapter 9.05 as it relates to parking. Go figure. Director?
This is just a request from Director Lemke, just asking that we put up no parking next to the lift station on Heffron. There, not that it's otherwise happens all the time, but it has happened on occasion that we'll always go there to do maintenance and someone may otherwise be parked there. So create an ordinance and prohibit parking there so they can get access to that whenever they need to.
So moved.
So second.
Thank you. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that is approved. Item number 5 is to award the Fall Paving Project 25-103 to Stuczynski Trucking and Excavating out of Stevens Point for an amount not to exceed $895,721.78.
You got real good bids? Nothing else to add.
So move from District 8.
Thank you.
Second.
Morrow seconds. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's approved. Item number 6 is to award the Conrete Pavement Repair Project 25-106 to Vinton Construction Company out of Two Rivers, Wisconsin, in an amount not to exceed $204,855.25.
So moved.
Second. Sorry, who was that?
Me.
Morrow moved. Boozy seconded. Discussion? Comments from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that's approved. Our agenda is exhausted, and we are adjourned at 6:55.